Fundamentals of internal control. Internal control is an integral process that is effected by an agency's management and personnel, and is designed to address risk and provide reasonable resources that in pursuit of agency's mission, the general objectives are being achieved. For better understanding, this definition is described in details as follows. An integral process. Internal control is a series of actions that permeate an agency's daily activities. These actions occur throughout an agency's operations on an ongoing basis. They are pervasive and inherent in the way management runs the agency. The internal control system is intertwined with the agency's activities. It is usually more economical and most effective when it is built in the agency's infrastructure and strategically incorporated in the way things are done in the agency. By building in internal control, it becomes part of and integrated with the basic management processes of planning, executing, and monitoring. Internal control is part and associated with all the programs, projects, and activities of the LGU. Affected by management and other personnel. People are what make internal control work. It is accomplished by what management and other personnel say and do. Consequently, internal control is affected by people who must know their roles, responsibilities, and limits of authority. Hence, all personnel in the agency play important roles in making it happen. Since internal control is affected by people, it is affected by human nature. Internal control guidelines recognize that people do not always understand and communicate or consistently perform each individual brings to the workplace a unique background and technical ability and has different values, needs, and priorities. People are a critical factor in internal control and necessary that there are mechanisms in place. And the specific roles and responsibilities for internal control of the people in the agency can be presented as follows: from head of the agency to the governing body, to internal auditors, employees and staff, and external parties, like the Commission on Audit, Department of Internal Local Government, and other partners. To address risks. Well, whatever the agency's missions may be, its achievement will face all kinds of risks. The task of management is to identify and respond to this risk in order to maximize the likelihood of achieving the agency's mission. Internal control can help address this risk. However, it can only provide reasonable assurance about the achievement of the agency's general objectives. In addressing risk, the management may terminate and avoid risk by having internal control in place, but not all risk may be avoided, as such may be transferred and or retained by the organization. There are several risks such as financial risk and operational risks. To provide reasonable assurance, no matter how well designed and operated, internal control cannot provide absolute assurance regarding the achievement of the general objectives. Instead, only a reasonable level of assurance is attainable. Nonetheless, they provide reasonable assurance which ensures that they have internal control in place, and it is approved, monitored, and will undergo a review. Reasonable assurance equates to a satisfactory level of confidence under given considerations of cost, benefits, and risks. Determining how much assurance is reasonable requires judgment. Agencies should justify the risk inherent in their operations and acceptable levels of risk under varying circumstances, and assess risk both quantitatively and qualitatively. In pursuit of agency's mission, any government agency is primarily concerned with the achievement of its mission, the agency's reason for being. It exists for a purpose. The public sector is generally concerned with the delivery of service and beneficial outcome in the public interest. In the local government units, the establishment and or review of the vision, mission, goals, and objectives are every 6 years during the formulation of Comprehensive Development Plan or CDP, which consists all sectors: infrastructure, social, environment, and economic. And every 2 years, it needs to be revisited for review during the executive legislative agenda formulation. Achievement of objectives. Internal control is geared to the achievement of separate but interrelated series of general objectives of an agency to wit: executing orderly, ethical, economical, efficient, and effective operations or the operations objectives, fulfilling accountability obligations or reporting or accountability objectives, complying with laws and regulations, compliance objectives, safeguarding resources against loss, misuse, and damage due to waste, abuse, mismanagement, errors, fraud, and irregularities, safeguarding of assets or resource objectives. Importance of internal control. Profitability or sustainability. For LGUs whose objective is to revenue generation and delivery of basic services and facilities, it is important that both profitability and sustainability is considered in the development of internal control. Observance of management policies. All concerned officials, employees, and other stakeholders should always observe issued policies set by the LCE, management, and other authorities. Safeguarding of assets or resources. It shall be observed by all concerned officials, employees, and other concerned that assets and resources should be safeguarded at all times. Prevention and detection of fraud and error, mechanisms such as anti-bribery management system, and upholding of the code of conduct of officials and employees ensure the prevention and detection of fraud and error. Accuracy and completeness of accounting records. All personnel involved in the preparation of all accounting records should ensure the accuracy and completeness of the financial reports that it will provide. Timely preparation of reliable financial information. The local accountant has the responsibility to provide a report to all stakeholders with reliable financial information as prescribed by the Commission on Audit. Protection of staff members and other stakeholders against disinformation. Mechanisms such as proper information management system is in place to ensure that information is disseminated all throughout the concerned individuals, from top management to the lowest unit of the organization. Limitations of internal control effectiveness. Internal control cannot be itself ensure the achievement of the general objectives as previously discussed. There will always be limitations to internal control effectiveness. Limitations may result from the following realities. Human judgment in decision making can be faulty. We are humans, and the judgment may be impaired by various factors. Breakdowns can occur because of simple errors or mistakes. These breakdowns are normal, just like in an information system wherein there will be bugs that will slow things down. Controls can be circumvented by collusion of two or more people. Existing controls can be impaired due to collusion but can be prevented by additional controls such as having an internal audit services, other review, and assessments conducted by the management such as quality management system or QMS, performance review, and management review. Nonetheless, there are still limitations to it. Management can override the internal control systems. Controls can be eased of which the management has the prerogative to do so. Some of these overrides leads to fraud and embezzlement. Roles and responsibilities on internal control. As management control, internal control requires the participation and involvement of the agency head, officials, and employees at all levels, including the various organizational units therein, in order to ensure that the agency's mandate and sectoral goals are achieved efficiently, effectively, and economically. The internal auditor is not responsible for establishing internal controls. Hereunder is the delineation of roles and responsibilities of various key players in the organization on matters involving internal control. First, the head of agency or the local chief executive has the authority to authorize and approve internal control in the LGU. He or she is also the first to promote internal control in the operations and activities of the LGU. Management Committee or MANCOM has the responsibility to recommend courses of action about internal control. Delivery units. Services, both internal and external, have the responsibility to execute established controls. Management unit, committees such as Local Finance Committee, has the responsibility to oversee the performance and recommended courses of action. to achieve the desired goals or targets. The IAS, Internal Audit Services Unit or Internal Audit Unit, conduct the independent review and assessment of internal control.